Hi guys, it's Trevor Chalaba here and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Yes, folks, this is the Blue Day podcast, and for Chelsea fans everywhere, every day is a blue day. I am your host, as always, Keith Lawrence, and folks, we have a very special episode for you this week. We have a very special guest for you this week. No, it is not my co-host who's going to be sitting alongside me on this one. He is somebody who, for many supporters of the show, might remember, he was classed as the ticket guy once upon a time, but he's certainly the Londoner living it large up north. It's Warren. Warren, welcome back. Before we talk about other things, let's get straight on. Let's get straight onto the main event, shall we? Right, perfect. Can you do the honours of introducing our special guest today?
I will do. Thank you very much, Keith, for that wonderful intro as always. And hello to my fellow Chelsea supporters all around the world. Firstly, I want to say how really, really excited I am for this. As long-term listeners of the show will know, we've had some very illustrious and esteemed guests in the past, ranging from the one and only Ron Chopper Harris, to the CPO, the chairman of the Chelsea Pitch Owners Association, Mr. Chris Isaac. We've had the likes of journalists, Harry Harris. We've even had the voice of Stamford Bridge himself, Neil the Spy Barnett. But very few of our previous esteemed guests have the illustrious career of our guest today. And what I want to do is, for the guessers out there, I'm going to give you a little run through some of his credentials from the sport of snooker. Firstly, he is a former world champion, winning his world championship in 2010. He is a Triple Crown winner. He has been a professional for over 25 years, consistently being in the top 16 for that whole time. In 2014, he became the first and is still the only professional snooker player, to have made 100 centuries in a single season, a statistic that to this day still amazes and astounds me. He finished with 103, no less, centuries in one season. He is one of only 4 players to have made over 900 centuries in his career, keeping illustrious company like John Higgins, Judd Trump and the Rocket Ronnie O'Sullivan. He is widely regarded as probably the best overseas player that we've ever had on the green baize. He is the one and only, the Thunder from Down Under, Mr. Neil Robertson. Neil, welcome to the show.
Wow, what an intro. I feel like I should be getting into a boxing ring with that. That was awesome.
Rob Walker inspired me.
Yeah, he does a great job with that, Rob. Yeah, and so did you. Yeah, that was brilliant.
Thank you. But welcome to the show. Thank you very much for coming on to the show. As discussed before, obviously this is the Blue Day podcast. We are a football podcast to do with Chelsea, but we just wanted to touch on a little bit of your snooker career as well, because we thought that it would be criminal to have such an illustrious guest on our show and not talk about some of your amazing achievements, like the Triple Crown and the centuries in 13-14 is probably where I'd want to start. I mean, I remember watching the 100th century in that season. I mean, that was incredible, Neil. I know you get a lot of people talking about it and stuff, but how was that for you? Did you feel a lot of pressure because people were talking about it?
Yeah, there's loads of pressure because Judd Trump had the previous record of, I think he made like 62 or 63. And quite early on, I was making a lot of centuries during the season. And I think after when I won the UK Championship, when I beat Mark Selby in the final, I think I'd finished going into like the Christmas break. I think I was on like something like 60. So it was very much on the cards. And yeah, things started really well. Around sort of, I think around February, I was, maybe around 80 or something. And then, going into the World Championships, I think I needed to make, how many did I need to make? I think I needed to make 7, I think, going in. So still quite a lot to make in one tournament. And, to do it against Judd in the quarterfinals, a match where I was 11-8 down as well. So to come back and make the century to go, I think it was to go 11 all, I think.
Yes, I believe it was.
Yeah, a lot of relief because there was a huge amount of external pressure, to try and be the first player to make 100 centuries, and I didn't really want to feel like, when Don Bradman, when he finished his cricket career, he finished his average on 99.8 because he got out with a duck in his last ever innings. So, I was really desperate to get it done, and I was incredibly proud to do so. To break the record that was previously held by 40 odd centuries was amazing, So, one of those records that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, you mentioned Judd there, and he's obviously one of the. I believe it's just a group of four of you that have made over 900 competitive centuries in your careers, which is amazing. But when Judd Trump is one of my favourite players to watch, he's so naughty snooker and everything. And when the two of you get together, and like playing each other, and you're both on good form, it's one of the most exciting matchups, probably along with when Ronnie's playing well and he's playing sort of anybody else in the world. It seems to be quite exciting. But you and Judd particularly seem to have, you seem to bring the best out of each other quite a lot as well. And you seem to have met each other quite a lot in big tournaments as well. Would you consider him? I mean, obviously, I think he's one of the best players in the world. But how do you regard people like?
Yeah, of course. Judd, he's already one of the best players who's ever played. There's no doubt about that. I guess there's in terms of one of the all-time greats, in terms of a player, he's right up there. In terms of what you have a GOAT conversation, it's like who's won the most worlds and that sort of stuff. Obviously, he's got a lot to do there, but in terms of a player, he's undoubtedly one of the greatest players who's ever played. And we've had a lot of really good matches in finals. The Champion and Champions final a few years ago, where there was 8 centuries in the match. I made 5 of them, and I won 10-9 with a total clearance in the last frame. That was probably considered the best final of all time in terms of the overall standard. We tend to bring the best out of each other. We're both aggressive players and like the heavy scoring, which is what people really enjoy watching. Hopefully there's plenty more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, you certainly seem to bring the best out of each other when you play each other, and you do certainly play to an incredibly high standard. Talking about sort of like the break building, obviously you've made 5 competitive maximums in your career to date. For those viewers that of the Blue Day podcast that may not be as familiar with snooker as me, and some of which may never have been particularly interested in snooker, hopefully we can get people to engage in it a little bit more. Now, this sounds like an unbelievable question, but just how difficult is that? I mean, 35.
A 147?
Yeah, 35 consecutive perfect shots.
I guess it's considered one of the hardest things to do in a sport, an individual sport, certainly. People compare it to a hole-in-one or a 9-darter in golf, a hole-in-one in golf or a 9-darter in darts. But a hole-in-one can kind of be done by anyone. I've got a friend who's done it in Australia, an older guy. He did it with a 7-wood. He just smacked it down and it rolled all the way along onto the green and just went in. So
you can certainly have an element of luck for that.
Yeah, massively. And a 9-darter, I think, is something that people do on quite a regular basis, certainly in practice. And they seem to come at a more regular intervals than what sort of big 147s do in the big events. So, and the dartboard never moves with snooker, every shot's kind of different. With darts, it's very much a repetitive action. It's still incredibly difficult to do, and I have absolute admiration for the skill in that. But I think world snooker is certainly considered the hardest individual achievement to do in a sport, because it takes years to get there. It takes years to develop.
Absolutely. It's not even a question for me that it is the most difficult feat in any sport that I've ever watched. Like you said, holding one. I'm not particularly good at golf. I could mishit a ball and it went in for a holding one.
Yeah.
Like you say, with the darts, you could just practice for 8 hours a day for a year, and you just happen to get this cluster of 9 darts together. I mean, I was talking to my esteemed co-host Keith earlier on about I've played snooker most of my life. I've played snooker for probably about 25, 26 years now. My highest break is 29. And I was trying to...
That's not too bad.
It's not too bad. It should probably be better. I'm very impatient, so I lose my concentration. But to try and put it into some perspective for Keith, who I know doesn't have quite as much time to watch snooker as I do, I was trying to put it into perspective for him. You could play a shot almost perfectly, be half an inch off, and that's the end of the break.
Yeah, that's right. You miss, millimeters out is all it takes.
Absolutely. I've just got a couple of more questions for you. Obviously, I guess it would be the pinnacle of your career winning the World Championship at the wonderful Crucible Theatre in 2010. Um, do you think that you're a better player now because of that, or not, basically?
Yeah, definitely a much better player because the game's changed an awful lot. Like the competition has got harder and harder. The strength of the depth of the tour is very, very strong. Like a lot of sports these days, you see, I think, even just to sort of compare it to football, if you look at the Premier League 20 years ago, um, you look at how strong the teams were then, and then you look at it now, and it's like it's almost right all the way down until the relegation battle. You know what I mean? There's so many good teams that play really good football, and it's like that in a lot of sports, and snooker is no different to that. So much harder to win tournaments now than what it used to be. To put yourself in those positions to win them. Something I struggled with this season actually. It's like getting past that last 32, last 16 stage, and once you get down to like the quarter semi-finals, that's when like the biggest players really kind of turn up and show the difference in the quality because they can handle the pressure really well. But yeah, as a player overall, certainly much better than what I was back then.
Absolutely. And just like I say, just a couple of more little points, and then I'm going to hand you over to Keith to sort of talk more about obviously like Chelsea, and so our regular viewers sort of get their fix of the Blue Day podcast as well. But who's your who's the toughest competitor you've played against? Because I think that a lot of people would automatically assume it would be Ronnie on top form, because I think we all know what a naturally gifted guy. I mean, he's just the most naturally gifted snooker player I've ever seen. But then I hear a lot of professionals talking about the match play of people like John Higgins and Mark Selby.
Yeah.
Is there one that's more difficult to play against than the other, or can you compare the two styles?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, Ronnie's, like arguably one of Britain's greatest ever sportsmen. Many people do consider him probably the greatest. Two different kind of challenges, right? I think that Selby and Higgins both can be really strong offensive players as well, but they generally make it really, really tough for you. They put the white in difficult positions on the cushions and sort of block angles a lot. Ronnie also does that, but Ronnie comes at you like a hurricane, really. He's very, very attacking. He gets you playing on instinct. He gets you playing maybe a bit quicker than what you are comfortable with because he is just so fast. And obviously the crowd love it as well. So when he's playing really well, the crowd are really enjoying it. And you have to go with that. You have no choice. You have to, with my game, with how attacking I like to be, I have to try and go with him in that regard. I can't do what Higgins and Selby do, where they sort of maybe keep things really tight and slow the game down a bit, maybe. So that's the difference between the two. So all three of them have tremendous qualities, but with Ronnie, it's you're part of like a show, and you have to go with it, or else you become part of the exhibition yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And just finally, and I know these questions are a little bit random, but again, I'm trying to cater for the people that might not be as used to watching snooker and not quite as aware of it. I remember seeing an interview with you. I think it was around 2008, 2009, and you were saying that you had made a big change to your personal life and your approach to snooker. You said when you first came to the UK, maybe you was not as focused on the game, and maybe you was enjoying the nightlife a little bit too much, and then you started knuckling down. I know you won your first ranking event. I think was it the 06 British Grand Prix?
Yeah, the Grand Prix.
Grand Prix. Yeah. Fantastic performance. Congratulations. And it was sort of from there that you started to really knuckle down. And I just wanted you to give our viewers a brief in look into how much dedication it really takes to be not only a top level snooker player, but a former world number one as you are, and a world champion. I mean, you've won 23 ranking tournaments. That doesn't happen by accident, does it?
No. It's a huge amount of work to put in. Yeah, when I was younger, I suppose, like any kind of, sort of late teen, early 20-year-old, you kind of, you learn through your life experiences and stuff like that. And I think when I first started winning tournaments, it was like, you go out to the nightclubs and stuff and everyone's recognizing you. And it's like, oh, wow, this is so exciting, but then I think you learn quickly that when, maybe you have a bit of a lean spell and, 90% of those people all of a sudden aren't around you anymore. And then you really sort of find out who your real friends are. And so, yeah, just like sort of normal part of life, I guess, with anyone, you know. And but a huge amount of work that I've put in, like, you know, a lot of work on the table, but it's all the stuff I do away from the table as well. It's you know, when I finish a match, as soon as I get home, I'm spending a few hours analyzing it, and even sometimes a few hours again the next day analyzing the same match and going through. We have like a lot of really good sort of data and stuff that we can sort of collect and gather and watch, and so it's all that kind of stuff that you go through that people don't see. Probably very much like coaches in football, you know, like it's what the managers, like, they barely sleep. They sleep, you know, 3-4 hours a day sometimes if they're lucky. You know, Frank Lampard talked about it a lot. It's all that work that you have to do. You know, you're watching a match 5-6 times over, thinking what could you have done different, and it's all of these things that make people great, make them the elite. That's what separates the elite from the not so.
Well, you are very much part of the elite, Neil, and you obviously have been for a number of years now. Long may it continue. I am going to pass you back over to my esteemed co-host and let him do his bit at the football, because I know he's chomping at the bit. I know he's very excited as well. But once again, on behalf of myself and on behalf of the Blue Day podcast, thank you very, very much for coming on. And that is a really cool Darth Vader thing that you have over there in
The helmet,
corner.
the helmet actually
pretty...
comes off. It's like a real life thing. I showed it to my son when he was like maybe 4, and he completely freaked out. And so I haven't.
Well, I hope you've
my daughter's 4 now, so
I hope you've reintroduced him to the wonderful world of Star Wars. Since.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I can see Boba Fett over there as well. I've
yes,
just seen Boba
right.
Fett.
Yep.
I'm going on a tangent. Keith, lock me up. Thank you very much, Neil. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Warren, you can stay for this. Thank you very much for the.
Thank you very much.
Lovely
I'm
questions.
going to mute myself off because I'm waiting a delivery and the dog will go mental. So I'm going to mute myself, but I'm going to listen. Thank you very much.
If ever was a guy so excited, it was him today. Brilliant. Right, let's crack on with Chelsea. Let's crack on with, obviously, your thoughts, because there was a couple of bits where, obviously, we'll talk about when you decided to start supporting Chelsea. But I've noticed on X, like social media, you've been quite vocal about how Chelsea have pretty much fallen. We discussed it. We will discuss it in a minute, in terms of they were Champions League winners a couple of years ago to where they are now. But before we discuss that, take us back to the moment when you decided to become a Chelsea supporter. When was that moment for you that you got that sort of nick of, this is a team I want to start supporting?
So when I came over to live in the UK, well, to try and live in the UK, when I was I think I was like 19 at this point. I came over to live in Leicester, so it would have been 2001. And I didn't really know too much about football. Like, I watched like the World Cup with my dad, the '98 World Cup with my dad. We used to, like, you know, he wanted to watch. I wasn't particularly keen, but he wanted to, and he sort of told me about, you know, the Brazilian Ronaldo and, you know, Zidane and all that sort of stuff. So we watched the '98 World Cup together, and it was pretty cool. Not so much getting up at 3 a.m. to watch the matches, but, you know, being in Australia. But I watched it. I watched it with him and that, and you know, it was a great spectacle. But in Australia back then, we didn't really have like sort of, you know, like Sky or anything like that. They barely showed any of the matches from the Premier League. All we'll get was maybe like the final of the FA Cup or something, or, you know, very little TV. And so when I moved over to the UK, you know, obviously, you know, the interest in football was completely different to in Australia, where it was all Aussie rules, cricket and rugby and, you know, tennis or something, right? So it was always on in the snooker club that I was playing at Willie Thorne's in Leicester, and you know, Match of the Day was on, which was always like a really good highlights package. And if I'm being honest, at the time, I kind of just preferred to watch Match of the Day and not an entire match of football, because you know, sometimes it would be 0-0 and I'd be really confused, and I'm like, well, like, what the hell is this? Like, you know, Australian sports and American sports, which I really love, all very high scoring affairs. You know, it's like goal, 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 and you know, so I didn't really appreciate the intricate sort of the tactics and the individual sort of moments of brilliance, you know, with someone doing really good dribbling or, you know, great pass or, you know, all these sorts of things. So it took a while for me to kind of start to enjoy the game. And But on Match of the Day, like Hasselbank and Johnson were scoring like a lot of goals together as a partnership, and Hasselbank was like scoring these like unbelievable goals, and also the Chelsea team had a lot of overseas players in the team. I think it was the first team that actually played a full Premier League 11, didn't it, with non-English players?
Right. Yeah.
So I quite enjoyed that. Being an overseas person myself, living in the UK, I quite liked all the overseas players that were playing in the team. And so I just enjoyed watching them. I knew Man United was like a big team, but again, like when I went over to the UK, the most famous part I knew about Man United was that David Beckham was married to Posh Spice, like Victoria Beckham. And everyone in Australia, that's how we actually viewed it in Australia, was that she was the big name and he was the sidekick in the show. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, no, seriously. It was, it was like that. And so I didn't really have any kind of connection or anything like that with any of the other teams like Arsenal, Liverpool, or Man United. So I just kind of like followed them. I didn't support them then, but I just kind of I liked them. I liked the blue kit as well. And I watched the matches, and I remember there was one game, it may have been the semis of the League Cup. I think we had someone sent off. It was against Spurs, I think. Is that right?
Believe so, yes. Yeah, and it's around about that time, yeah.
I think so, yes. I think we lost like the second leg 5-1 or something, and the person I was staying with in Leicester was a Spurs fan, and he was cheering and jumping up and down and everything like that. And so I remember watching it and just kind of like wanting Chelsea to win, more so just to see him get annoyed, but it didn't turn out like that, obviously. And I remember watching an FA Cup game where Zola did this like flick at the near post against Norwich. And that was all the talk, all the rave in the snooker club the next day, was everyone talking about Zola's flick. So it was like quite exciting, the team and that. And but so my season didn't end very well. I didn't do too snooker tour, so I went back to Australia. But I always kind of kept sort of tabs on results and things. And when I came back to Cambridge in 2003, that was the team I kind of I just continued that kind of support, really. And I remember playing in the Masters, the snooker tournament, and John Terry was in the crowd. I wasn't playing myself, but I was watching the tournament on TV after I got knocked out, and John Terry was in the crowd, and he was like playing for Chelsea and stuff. And I just thought that was really cool that Chelsea had like a really big snooker fan. And so I just was like, yeah, like this is my team, and it was exciting. It was like building a really good sort of like young team. Mix of like a lot of overseas players and the young sort of English talent as well. And so it was like from that moment on, really, it was like, I guess from 2001, but it was when I sort of came back to living to Cambridge when, they were the team that I sort of like went with. And, of course, everyone barred me from supporting United or Arsenal because I would be jumping on the bandwagon, So it was only a few years after Chelsea started doing really well that people were like, oh, hang on a minute.
Exactly. It was at that, excuse me, it was at that stage when Roman took over the club and there was a lot of big spending, where have we heard that before, in terms of, bringing in top players, and then Chelsea started to compete with the likes of Arsenal and Manchester United. Did you get a chance to go to Stamford Bridge in your sort of time when you were sort of going to and from here to Australia? And what sort of stories have you got of, following Chelsea at that stage?
I think I never really had the opportunity to go until I think the first match I actually watched ever was a friend of mine on tour, Matthew Selt. He was friends with someone who used to play for West Ham, and so he asked me to come to watch a match, and it was West Ham were at home to Aston Villa, and West Ham had just signed Tevez and Mascherano. And the Villa fans, they were all chanting Tevez to Chelsea to wind up like the West Ham fans. And so that was just like quite a funny kind of period where, a bit of like wind up there. But that was my first experience of actually watching like live football. And so like I really enjoyed it. It was like amazing. You're watching it on TV and then you're watching it in real life, and the trajectory of the ball, the speed of the ball in real life is a lot different to TV. And yeah, I loved it. The atmosphere of the crowd was amazing, and all the cheering and like the songs and stuff. And one of the big differences in Australian sports, we don't really have that kind of like all the songs about the club and about the players and things. I think it's so creative and it creates like an unbelievable atmosphere. Because I guess with football, there's not always like goals scored in frequent intervals, every few minutes or something. Sometimes it's like that. You can have a crazy sort of like 20, 30 minutes, but sometimes there can be like quite long periods without sort of goals. And so to help with that atmosphere, I guess that the fans have created like these songs and things to kind of keep that going for like the 90 minutes. And so that's my first experience watching. And then we watched, then we went to, the two of us, we went to Stamford Bridge to watch Chelsea play Aston Villa. I think that would have been around 2007 or something like that, 2007, 2008. And then I tried to go sort of like whenever it was possible, really. I had started to do really well on the snooker circuit, and Chelsea knew that I was like a fan of the club. So I came to watch the first time as like a guest, I guess you could call it. I think we played Spartak Moscow in maybe the group stage of the Champions League. I think it may have been.
Yeah.
I came and watched that at Stamford Bridge. That was an unbelievable atmosphere because I was quite close to the away support, and they were so loud. It was incredible. It was really intimidating. And then yeah, I can't remember the next time I would have gone after that. It would have been. Oh, actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure the next game was the first leg of the Champions League against Juventus, where Drogba scored the goal to go 1-0 up. And the Juventus away fans, I've never seen anything like it. I thought the Spartak Moscow ones were really hardcore, but the Juventus away fans were unbelievable. It was scary, yeah, but it was an amazing atmosphere. And it was brilliant seeing those kinds of players, right? The Juventus side had like, Buffon and Nesta playing. Not Nesta, sorry, Nedved. I think Del Piero and Trezeguet, and it was like an awesome team. And obviously we were at like full strength then as well, right? With like Drogba, JT, and Czech Lamps, and the rest of the team. So yeah, it was like I'd always try and sort of get to games whenever it would be possible. And so I went to the first leg of the Champions League semi-final with Barcelona. The one where we held on to win 1-0.
2012.
Great, the great side. I mean, it was just like it was crazy the football that they played. We had no choice but to sit deep in that and just to try and kind of get a goal on the break or something. And it was mesmerizing to watch, but to see Terry and Gary Cahill's like the whole team defensively, like the leadership to just keep it all together, and to somehow hold on and win 1-0. That was absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Where was you when it came to the Champions League final? Where did you watch it?
Well, yeah. So when we won the second leg, obviously I wanted to get to the final because like it was the World Championships had finished, and so I got onto the phone to a few people I knew sort of like within Chelsea, and that like I hadn't sort of got to know any of the players by that stage, and I was trying to find out, trying to get tickets, and it was just like it seemed like it was absolutely impossible. Like the friend who gave me him and his dad they had season tickets to Chelsea, and they actually gave myself and Matt the 2 tickets to watch the first leg of the semi-final, and they went to one of the Chelsea pubs around the corner from Stamford Bridge. So that was really nice of them. And he told me that when he picked up the tickets for the final, so it was him, his wife, and his dad, somebody offered him something like 10 grand for the 3 tickets when he like sort of picked them up. And he knocked it back. He knocked it back to go and watch the final. So crazy. But I couldn't get a ticket, so I had to watch at home. And yeah, it was just that was a really sort of nerve-wracking experience because we had like we had a few players injured. Louise and Cahill basically playing with one leg. John Terry was sadly suspended, and a few of the other players as well, Ivanovic, and Bayern Munich also had a couple of players suspended. And I remember both clubs putting in kind of like some sort of appeal to UEFA saying that if they could, because I think both teams had something like 2 or 3 players suspended.
That's right.
Through yellow cards or whatever.
Yeah.
And they try to sort of appeal, and if they could allow both teams to field their full strength team. And UEFA knocked it back. And yeah, so watching the final, and again, sort of pretty similar to against Barcelona, where we had to sort of defend and hang on. It was a bit of a makeshift sort of 4-4-2 kind of formation, where he doubled up on Robin with Ashley Cole and Ryan Bertrand on the left.
That's right, yeah.
And to nullify Robin, and I remember Bosunga playing a great game against Ribery as well. And Mikel was just putting out fires everywhere. Frank was just trying to run around and try and create something out of nothing. And Kalu, Drogba and Mata trying to get something happening as well. It was just so hard. They just kept winning the ball back all the time, and it was just it seemed like attack after attack. And I remember they missed quite a few good chances early on. Gomez, I think he tried like a Cruyff turn in the box, and he had all the goal to shoot at, and he blazed it over. And and then I don't know, it just looked like we were kind of never be able to kind of win the game normally by scoring a goal. It looked like we were just going to try and somehow maybe nick it from a set piece or maybe on penalties. And when Muller got that goal at the end, it was oh no, here we go again. Because obviously going through the pain of 2000 and what was it, 4-5 semi-finals or something, and in the final in Moscow as well, which was we kept losing, and it's like, oh, here we are again, and it was obviously like the last chance for that team to kind of win the Champions League before things were going to start to break up a bit. Certain players go retire or to break off and go to other clubs. And then, I don't know, sort of Torres, he won the corner, didn't he? He came on and he won the corner, and then Mata whipped the ball, and that header from Drogba was just unbelievable. I remember jumping up in my lounge room, sort of, now here we are going extra time. But then it was like started the process all over again of trying to hang on for 30 minutes, and get to pens, because we're just never going to be able to kind of win it in open play. And then Drogba gave away the pen, and then Robin Robin in the interview afterwards, talking about his penalty, he said he tried to shoot it high and into the corner, and he mishit it and just hit it flat and low, didn't he?
That's
and then
right,
in checks mid-drift, and he sort of grabbed hold of the ball. And then we hung on, and then the pens, and then the penalties I couldn't watch. I saw Mata miss his first one, and I actually left the lounge room, and like a few of my friends were still in there, and I walked to the kitchen, and I was just like, oh my God. And then I heard one of my friends scream, "Oh, what a pen!" And so then I ran up, and I think it was Louise's pen. When he did that huge run up, and he just smashed it right into the top corner. Yeah. And then I watched the remainder of the penalties after that, and Czech was amazing, wasn't he? The save of the Polish striker, can't remember his name.
Olic.
Left footer.
And
he saved Olic, that's it. Yeah, he saved his pen, and then and not many people sort of knew it at the time, but he actually got fingertips to Schweinsteiger's pen as well. He tried to sort of like do the slow run up and wait for Czech to move, but he wouldn't move, and then Didier put it away. But what made me really nervous about Drogba's penalty was the run up. It was only off 2 steps, wasn't it? So but to see it go in, and then it's just amazing.
And when you look at, obviously, could you fast forward the amount of, say, trophies that Chelsea have won, the likes of the Premier League under Ancelotti, under Conte, under a certain Jose Mourinho, who would you say was your favourite coach?
Well, I really enjoyed like Mourinho when he came in, because all of a sudden it was like, it was like someone who just completely shook the Premier League, like who just shook everything up, and instilled a winning mentality into the young side straight away. And not many people realize, I think at the time, we were a really young side that won that first Premier League trophy. Like Terry and Lampard, they're only kind of like 23, 24, and Czech and all these guys like that. It was a young side. Robin and Joe Cole, and and So obviously Jose was like, he was awesome. You know, it was fantastic, that siege mentality. And, you know, there's that clip that's going around recently on X with him. John, I think, retweeted it or shared it on Instagram as well. The one where after we won the League Cup and Jeff Shreves was saying, oh, do you think you've got a point to prove? And, you know, the way Mourinho goes, like, he just pauses and just like, you know, Sir Alex, the only person in this country who has won the European Cup. And then he just stops for 5 seconds and goes, so, you know, so what? I have to prove to who? And Jeff Shreves was just completely stung, just like no answer. And so when we sacked him, it was just kind of really sad. It was just so ruthless, wasn't it? And then Ancelotti, I think everyone loved. The fans really loved. The football was really good. It was like we were such a big, strong, physical team. And, you know, we scored that, you know, we scored 106 league goals or something. What did we score that year?
That season, like 09-10, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were just slaughtering teams. You know, it was like sort of 5, 6, 7. You know, it was awesome and such a powerful team. And then, you know, he got sacked because, you know, finished second to United. And, you know, I mean, it was kind of Roman's fault in a way because he signed Torres, which really upset the whole sort of side because Ancelotti didn't know what to do with Torres and Drogba in the teams. So all of a sudden, now we've got to play 2 up top. Like the team's not built for that. Like, you know, and probably led to Mourinho sacking a few years early when he signed Shevchenko. Again, you can't just stick Shevchenko on the wing. You got to play 2 up top. And they tried to play with a diamond, and you know, it upset the whole sort of fluidity of the team. And you know, so I felt for Ancelotti in that regard. And then. So I loved, like, you know, Mourinho, Ancelotti. Then we went down a different route, I suppose, with like trying Villas-Boas, and that never worked out. And I think who did we go with? I think we went with Mourinho again, didn't we? And then
That's
Conte.
right.
Conte was amazing. I remember I was going to games like on a very regular basis and got to meet you know Joe Terry, and John Terry, got to know him well, and could hit him up for tickets anytime I wanted, and he'd always give me his family tickets and that. So it was just like, that was awesome. I remember it would be like a few days before like Liverpool game at home, and I'll be like, hey mate, I know it's late notice, but would you be able to sort me out some tickets? And he's like, yeah mate, no worries. I'm like, oh yes, let's go. But I remember watching the football under Conte in that first season, you know, when we really started to get going. Because he stuck with the back four, didn't he, to begin with? And then when it was all going wrong at Arsenal, he had enough, didn't he? He reverted to the back 5 sort of.
That's right, yeah.
After half time in that game. And then we went on to lose 3-0, but I think we may have been 3-0 down at the time. But all of a sudden, instantly, we looked like a completely different side. And then he kept that through. And then, you know, we won so many games in a row. And we were playing at home to Leicester. And I think we won the match 3-0, but it was just complete pure control. The football was absolutely amazing. And I was just like one touch passing, moving, and it was just this perfectly oiled machine working together as one. Everyone was positionally perfect. And I remember Hazard talking recently on the Obi-Wan podcast that he hated all the tactical instructions from Conte, but he felt as though he played his best level under Conte. And I remember like one of the things from that game, which was unbelievable, was somebody, I think, cleared the ball out. It was like, and the ball, it seemed like it was in the air for an eternity. And I was right behind kind of like the dugout, and Conte's just looking up at the ball, and he's just like controlled it perfectly with his like, you know, Italian leather shoes, just like as if he had boots on. It was just, and the whole crowd just went absolutely crazy, you know. And then the song, right, you know, the Antonio, you know, that song was awesome. And yeah, I don't know. So I thought, here we are, we've got our manager now, you know, we've got the guy who's going to be here for a long time. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he won the league with that team, which, you know, on paper, not many people thought we could win with. And then, you know, he wanted some sort of pretty big players that he thought he could get. And, you know, instead we signed, you know, Danny Drinkwater and Zappa Costa. That was his reward, you know. And I think, yeah, he kind of cracked it a bit, didn't he? You know, so, so those 3 are the ones that kind of really stick out. And I really enjoyed the football that Sarri was trying to play as well, you know, with bringing Jorginho in as the registrar. And
yeah,
you could kind of really see what he was doing. It didn't look great a lot of the time. Sometimes with the sideward passing and the fans were getting impatient, but you could kind of see what he was trying to kind of build. it was just a shame that he left because, we were playing really good football sort of like towards the end where, the Europa League final was awesome. It was a brilliant performance from Hazard, his last for the team. And those three managers for sure. And, with Frank was probably the one that I think all Chelsea fans really wanted it to work out the best for, but unfortunately didn't quite sort of work out. And, and then here we are. We're kind of, well, actually, no, Tuchel, of course. So, Tuchel again, like we keep getting baited by this, don't we? These managers we fall in love with this in such short time, and then they're gone. Like Tuchel again, he galvanized the team, and somehow like sort of getting through all the Cobham young players, and winning the final against City, and even when we're going through the sanctions, when he says that if we don't have a plane, we'll go by bus. If we don't have a bus, I'll drive that. It's just something that really connected with the fans at that time. And then, the new owners come in and obviously sort of, their 100-day evaluation. Who knows what the actual real reason was why he got sacked. But so here we are, we're going through this manager roller coaster at the minute, and there aren't too many highs with the constant downs that are going on.
No, not for the last couple of years, certainly not. We've discussed the managers. Who would you say was your favourite player for Chelsea? Who's your all-time favourite?
Hazard. Hazard for sure. Yeah, Hazard. I loved the inspiration from like JT and Lamps and Drogba and check saves over the years, obviously, and Essien was a player I loved as well. It was just sad that his career got really cut short through like the knee injuries that he got when he was on international duty with Ghana. I think he would have been just an absolute all-time great in the Premier League. Really like Ballack as well. I loved him when he was at like Leverkusen and stuff. And, but yeah, it has to be Hazard. Just his individual. He was the only player that kind of like I felt that we had that real individual ability to win a match on his own. Like we had great players over the years who could come up with individual moments, but I felt like even if we were playing bad, as long as we were in the game, we had a chance with Hazard.
Sure, good choice. To be honest, very, very good choice. Just out of curiosity, obviously, with your illustrious career as a snooker player, was there any particular game that you wanted to go to, that you wanted to get tickets for, but you couldn't because obviously you was tied in with a snooker tournament or you had to practice? Was there any particular games that you missed out on because of, say, snooker getting in the way?
Yeah, I mean, it would probably have to be the Champions League final, right, in 2012, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it would have to. I would have loved to have gone to. Was it in Portugal, the final when we beat City?
Yes, it was in Porto.
Portugal. Yeah, I would have loved to have sort of gone there. Different time of year though, right? With the restrictions and stuff, right? So it was just not possible. But I think if we sort of get there again, I don't think I could let like the third time slip. So sort of fingers crossed.
Be on the phone to JT, yeah.
Yeah.
Try and sort something out.
Yeah, anything, yeah.
Of all the sort of guests that we've had on the show as well, we have discussed a particular concept that has crept into football over the last number of years, and a lot of people can't stand it. A lot of people do want it gone, and that's VAR. It's something that a lot of people, it's a lot of people that, a lot of things that people are not happy with, and it was sort of apparent when we played in the cup final the other day against them.
Went both ways, didn't it?
It certainly did. What's your view on VAR?
Well, I think that VAR worked brilliantly well in the World Cup for the most part. I think their technology, how they used the offsides, not doing those ridiculous it's not like we have those straight angles, is it? It's like we get these angles. We can't see, and then we're infuriated when they draw these lines from what was it, the player's arms at the shoulder, like the Jackson one on the weekend. It's like I actually said to a friend, I said, there's no way he'll be offside with his feet here. They're going to draw it from the arm somewhere, like the Lukaku one, right? A couple of years ago, which was, again, ridiculous. I mean, a friend of mine who was at the game, who is in the media, said that the camera angle that they actually had, when they've seen it past the event, he did look offside, which is fine. Like, I didn't think there was anything untoward going on. But as a fan watching at home, you're infuriated because you can't see yourself. You don't know what's going on. The Van Dijk header that was a goal, like I guess I understand that from a technical point of view. You do see some decisions like that when in the NFL and America, where a yellow flag goes down and there's like a video review. So you do see that. That is fine. So in Australia, in Australian, in like Aussie rules, we have like the 4 posts, right? We've got the 2 smaller ones and we have the 2 taller ones. If the ball goes between the 2 taller ones, it's like considered a goal. Sometimes a defender can get on the line and get their fingertips to it or something like that, right? So if that is the case, the umpire then refers it to the video assistant straight away. Everyone in the crowd can see the replay of this happening. And when it's happening, the video assistant then says on speakers to the crowd in the stadium, says, you can clearly see the ball doesn't touch the defender's fingers. It's goal. There's no transparency like that at all with VAR. Absolutely none. We get Michael Owen and Webb on the Monday sports show in the mornings. It's like, well, I mean, that's no good to anyone who's in the stadium or at home watching the game at the time. But then, hearing how chaotic it is in there, and then, it's a bunch of guys who have just got no calmness about them whatsoever. I'm not too sure that's a good idea to be, broadcasting that in the stadium. It's just absolute chaos. I can't believe how unprofessional and how amateurish it actually comes across in there. Do you know what I mean? It sounds like a mini circus going on inside a van. So there needs to be a lot of improvement done to it. Like, I think for offsides, I think it's a good idea. But I think that sometimes it's like when a goal gets scored, I've almost stopped celebrating myself now because, like, well, how far are they going to go back? Is it going to be like back from the goal kick up the other end when maybe someone got half bumped over or something that had nothing to do with the play? Like, it's just this, so they need to kind of refine it and, get it right. And, I think it's a good thing if it can be done really well, because I've seen it successful in other sports where it's done very well and it's quick. The decision making is quick, but the decision making so far is not quick in it, and so they've got a lot of work to do. I think what could really help is is bringing in the same kind of offsides that they do in like the Champions League and what they used in the World Cup. How it's got like the I'm not too sure what it's called. It's like the virtual reality kind of thing. The actual
I know what you
computer
mean.
sort of. It doesn't have somebody manually drawing lines or asking for different views. It's just automated and it's just fact.
Makes it more clearer and it's a lot quicker as well.
Yes.
Just a few more questions, Neil, before we do let you go for today. We've discussed about some of the great Chelsea sides that have won trophies, and then you've got the Chelsea side of 2024. What's your view on sort of this version of Chelsea? Because it's certainly not the same as what obviously you've seen over the last 20 years. Certainly not the same as what other fans have seen over the years. Obviously, it's a new team, new players, but what's your overall thoughts on what's going on at Chelsea Football Club today?
My overall thoughts is that when we had to sell the club, and then you look at Todd Bowley's success with like the LA Dodgers and things and stuff like that, you can get quite excited about it because they invested a lot into the LA Dodgers on young talent and the best talent. So I thought it was going to be a mix of signing maybe 2 or 3 kind of like marquee signings and then develop the youth as well, which you kind of think that's how he tried to do it in that first summer. But the experienced signings and the very expensive signings on huge wages were just an absolute disaster. And then in the January, we obviously recruited an awful lot of young talent as well, which was very exciting. The results were an absolute disaster, obviously, and sacked Tuchel for, again, I'm not too sure if it's non-footballing reasons or what. I think Simon Jordan on TalkSport said that if he was the owner of Chelsea and knew what Tuchel was doing, he would have sacked him as well. But again, didn't elaborate on what the actual reasons were. So I'm not too sure, and I don't really want to guess. Okay, fair enough. We have a new manager. It's Potter. When we signed Potter, it's like, okay, well, we've got a young team, fair enough. Yeah, but like when things start to go wrong, and they always will with a young team, they're going to look at him and think, well, how can we trust anything you're saying when you haven't been there and done that yourself? He can't say, don't worry, guys, we'll turn this around. We will get top four. We will compete for a cup. It's like all the players will be like, well, yeah, but how do you know? You've never done that before yourself. So straight away, there's going to be a bit of pushback from the players, and that's what obviously happened. And that's kind of just continued, right? Frank took over and he said how hard that was, managing players who half of them were going to leave, training session 30 odd players.
Yeah.
What they've done is it's like almost like in American sports where, when you finish the bottom, you get the highest draft picks. It's like they've gone out and bought the top 30 draft picks and they're all thrown them in together. And I think that the one player I feel really sorry for is Mudryk, because Arsenal were after him. I know this for a fact. Arsenal had done a lot of work on him. The deal was set up. It was 2 or 3 months of work. The deal set up. He knew he was going to Arsenal for a few months. He was so excited to play with Zinchenko, even playing on the same side of the pitch. Friend of his from his country, all sorts going on in their country, as we know. He was really excited for that. And then for some reason, we just sort of completely hijacked that deal without any thought of how we're actually going to develop him as a player. We just wanted him because Arsenal wanted him. Yeah. And we started just going after players because other clubs wanted him and one of those players. And so Pochettino is like sold on this project, but Pochettino can't develop 2 or 3 players and then the rest of the squad being experienced can then teach them the ways, carry them through a season. Pochettino is having to develop 15, 16 players. And there's just no time you can possibly do that. You can't develop that amount of players at that amount of time. And so with Mudryk and a lot of the other players, their performances and their confidence is getting lower and lower and lower because they're just not able to be integrated into the side. And I think that we saw Mudryk's his debut performance against Liverpool. I don't know if you remember that, but it was just exciting because he came on and it was like he got no tactical instructions whatsoever. He just got told to play. Yeah. He went through them. Yeah. He was passing well. He was, doing a few little tricks. He wasn't afraid of losing the ball. He almost scored a goal. He put Carney in a couple of times. He should have scored twice. But then slowly that confidence and that belief has been fading, and that's been it's spread throughout the whole squad. Nobody's kind of really gelling together, and there's a lot of arguments on the pitch as well. You see it, the players, a lot of arguing. There's no kind of leadership. I think that Pochettino selecting James and Chilwell as the captains made no sense to me whatsoever. Like, if James has been someone who's played every game for the last 3 or 4 years, fair enough, but he's been injured so long. And I remember, John saying on X saying that, the captain has to be someone who plays every minute of every game, not someone who, is injury prone. It wasn't a dig at Reece, but it's like the captain has to play all the time. And so I'm just not getting the same kind of vibe with the leadership. It seems like Chilwell's the captain because there's no one else that Poch can choose. It doesn't look like there's many leaders in the team. So it's a very young side that it's just going to have to take time, because you can't just, the only one who's won something is probably Enzo Fernandez, I guess. I know a few of the younger Chelsea players are left from winning the Champions League, but that's not quite the same as people who have been there and done it for like 5 or 6 years. So there's a lot of work to do in the team. Pochettino was his performance in the final, I was judging him. So my harsh criticism for Pochettino didn't come from the 90 minutes. It was the extra time.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
The first 90 minutes, both teams had big chances. We dominated really the last 20 minutes, especially when Liverpool had to bring on their graduate kind
Their
of players,
kids,
really.
yeah, their academy players.
And I know that we have a young side, but our young side was far more experienced than their young players, and could have won it in extra time. Could have won it at the end there. I think Gallagher's just a bit unlucky. Obviously, hit the post, and I think you got to credit Kelleher for the save, not so much that Gallagher missed, because it's not as if he missed the target. The shot was on target. It was just Kelleher was on him in a flash. It was a brilliant piece of goalkeeping.
Yes,
and of all the players that you just really wanted to have to score the win or something was Connor, because he's the only player who's kind of really bust an absolute gut for the team all year. He's played in different positions. He's played in a pivot, which he doesn't like, but he's done it anyway.
Yeah,
he's been the real heartbeat of the team. And he pulled us out of the mud really against Palace with those 2 goals. He started it with Aston Villa, with that brilliant first goal.
Yeah.
So it's not as if he's been missing everything. He's been an integral part of the team the last month or so. But when we got to extra time, I said, right, okay, now I'm judging Pochettino. Is he going to be the guy to take us forward? Because the manager to take us forward has to be someone who knows how to win, who knows how to get the job done in these kind of circumstances, And the fact that I know that he tried to defend himself, I don't believe him. He tried to defend himself by saying that he didn't instruct the players to play for penalties, but you don't have a whole team just sit back like that unless they're actually told to. If Pochettino is actually screaming at them to get up the pitch, then they're going to do it. The fact that we sat back and we let those Liverpool sort of like teenagers and 20-year-olds have 4 or 5 touches on the ball before we applied any kind of pressure drove me absolutely nuts. I was furious, and Gary Neville came under a lot of criticism with what he said about the Klopp's kids beats the billionaire bottle jobs. Neville wanted Liverpool to lose that game. He was furious with Chelsea because we didn't have a go in extra time, and you could see him. He was like a kettle, waiting for the top to pop off, because we sat back. We just allowed him to get into it. We allowed him to grow in confidence. So for me, that was a massive audition for Poch, and he came up well short. And so moving forward, I don't know. We'll see how the FA Cup goes. Tonight will be the match against Leeds will be an interesting atmosphere. If we go down early in that one, that is going to be not a very enjoyable experience for the team and for him. So yeah, I hope we get a result. I like Poch. I think he speaks well. He's in for this, for the long haul, and he's trying to develop players and that. But at the end of the day, he's never won anything of any significance. And so the longer that goes, the harder it is for players to buy into things that he's saying. So for me, like the League Cup final was a massive disappointment. And so who knows where we go from here? We certainly can't sack him, no matter how bad things get. I think this season, I don't think we're going to do what we did and try and bring Lampard in for the good vibes. I think we'll stick with him till the end of the season and sort of see what happens. I think that I think the 2 was it Winstanley and that they were
Stuart and Winstanley,
yeah, Stuart and Winstanley, they were responsible for bringing him in and for bringing like Potter in, right, or something. So that's not really worked so far, has it? Their management recruitment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because as much as maybe we're unsure what the owner's intentions are, with success sort of financially and success on the pitch, how much they're willing to kind of really try and make that happen. They're probably not going to sort of like stand for people making these kind of decisions and getting them wrong from a management point of view. Because you look at Ratcliffe, he was really in for Chelsea. He came in quite late, didn't he, into the bid to buy Chelsea, and he was a Chelsea season ticket holder. And you hear the way he's talking about United, and it's like it almost feels as though we've really missed out there, because he's he got Man City's best man. He's trying to get the best. He's not trying to develop people into being good sporting directors, like what Bowley and Bali said. We think these guys can be great sporting directors. Ratcliffe's just getting the best, and he will get the best manager available. So it will be interesting to see how those two things happen, because when we won the Champions League, it's like United were about 5 years behind us.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden things seems like they're really like spinning to the other way around. United aren't playing great this year. We know that, but Ratcliffe is putting things in place for them to become great. And
off the pitch, they're doing some work. Yeah. Final question from me, Neil, for today. You touched on Poch, and yeah, I can't personally see him getting the sack between now and the end of the season. Obviously, depending where we finish, might be a different story for him. But again, as you say, the hiring and firing of managers, there has to come a point where you need to stick with somebody that is going to, as you say, develop players. But the problem is, how many players can you develop in space of a season? It is difficult.
Yeah.
But final question from me, Neil. What's your predictions for Chelsea? Where do you see Chelsea in the next 12 months? Do you see them as it is now, or do you feel that there's something there that can be built on?
I mean, I think I want us to just go one way or the other. So basically, sort of either like really stick with Poch and say, look, we're going to trust you to really build this team. We're going to trust you, and so either stick with that or bring in someone who has that winning experience. So I think for now until the end of the season, certainly it would be great to. I think with FFP, I'm not even too sure if we can compete in the Conference League, but at least finish in the position where we could, right? If we're not in it, we're not in it because of financial fair play or some penalties, fine. But at least if we can kind of finish the season and get into some, those places maybe, and have a good run in the FA Cup. And for me, like, it's not really all about winning or losing. It's about like the style of football, and if you're seeing like true progress in the side, and it looks like we can actually build into something. Like Klopp's first few years, like he didn't win anything, he lost a couple of finals, but you could see him building something, and it was exciting football, and then it was something that the fans could really grow into and develop with him. That's what I want to see with us is for us to develop with these coaches, with these young players, and then be on that ride together, and then hopefully win something big because. Klopp's leaving, which is, who knows what Liverpool will be next season. They could be great if they maybe get Alonso or something, or a Nagelsmann, who knows. They certainly won't be as good, I don't think. So there are opportunities there to move up. But yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is as well, we do need to sort of marquee signings. Like we need a striker. That's just so obvious. Without a striker, we've got no chance of finishing anywhere sort of close to the top four. We just won't. So if we can get sort of like two good signings in the summer and develop the young players, like we do have a great young squad, then yeah, I think next season a realistic target. You'd have to say top 5 is absolutely a realistic target, and it has to be, and it has to be the minimum requirement, really. If we give Poch this season to develop, to learn, to see the players he wants, the ones he doesn't. And then he has next season. If he doesn't finish top 5, then you'd have to say he's probably not the person. But I certainly see us definitely competing for top 5 without a doubt, and hopefully win a cup. Hopefully win like a League Cup or a FA Cup or something. While Pep's at City, you're not going to win the league. It's just like you look at what Klopp's done. 97, 95 points or something, and still finishing second. Like he's too good.
Very high standards, but we was there once. Hopefully we will be there again. We was there once. But Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. It really has. And thank you so much for obviously your insight into your world of snooker and obviously in the world of football as well. And obviously good luck with the championships coming up this year. And hopefully we'll sort of get to see you back at the bridge someday quite soon as well.
All right. Cheers. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.